Good morning, everybody. It's Christopher Taylor, Sovereign Harmony. Thanks for joining me here. Sunday, March 30th, early in the morning here, just after sunrise. Want to check in on this week in astrology. Again, like last week, another week with lots going on. We're just coming off of the eclipse, the total, no, it wasn't a total eclipse, sorry, but it was a solar eclipse in Aries at about 9 degrees Aries. Okay, so that's the second eclipse in the series. It's the final one in the Libra Aries series. Okay, so now we're going to have our eclipses in Pisces Virgo. We had the Virgo lunar eclipse a couple weeks ago, so now we're kind of entering that phase. Okay, so we are complete with releasing codependence and embracing our sovereignty in a way. So we're ready to use that now. And that's really what this solar eclipse in Aries is all about, is using that sovereignty. How can we now implement that? Okay, and to go along with that, just this morning, we had the big move of Neptune into Aries. Okay, so Neptune's going to be in Aries till 2039. It will dip back into 29 degrees Pisces in the fall, like late October to late January. But for the most part, it will be in Aries from now until 2039. Okay, and this is a pretty big move. We've had Neptune in Pisces. It first dipped in 2011. It made its final entry in February of 2012, and it has been in Pisces since February 2012 until this morning. Okay, and it'll only, again, we'll go back to the 29 degrees of Pisces in the fall this year. So an era is over, a new era is beginning, and because it's the end of the zodiac in Pisces, the beginning in Aries, it really is kind of like stamping a new spiritual beginning. We think of Neptune, it kind of represents the ocean, the vastness, the unknowns that are underneath the ocean, etc. And if you ever heard that phrase, or that quote, I think it's Rumi said it, you are not a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean contained in one drop, right? So that's the essence of Neptune and Aries, because Aries has to do with, the independent self. So if we think of Neptune dipping into Aries, it is that entire ocean trying to represent itself in one drop, one individual. And that whole ocean did not pour into us as individuals overnight. For sure, it's going to take that 14-year period for our entire essence to essentially be able to filter in and express through the individual. But there is a sense of the rise of the individual that will be happening over the coming years, especially when Saturn enters Aries, joins Neptune at 0 degrees Aries next February. It's kind of the rise of the individual really is born, because it'll also be the midpoint of Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini. So there's a lot of planets and signs and suggestions energetically that, the collapse of the structures we've had, government, corporate, whatever, the top-down structures are really in a state of collapse. And I think we could see that with a lot of the stuff that's going on right now. But there's going to be, a new beginning, a rise of the individual, and that doesn't mean that we can't get along. In fact, it means that it's going to be this rise of being able to have a differing opinion and still get along, still work together. Because a lot of that top-down authority that we've had is had tried to get us into one set of opinions essentially on everything. And if you're not with it, then you're against us. You're Hitler essentially, which is really the most common thing that comes out if you don't agree, right? And so this sense of it being okay to disagree, and I've always say this in my practice is, to be free, we must disagree. In other words, you really can't experience freedom unless you can be comfortable in your own sovereign disagreement with others. Okay, if you have to agree with others to feel good, you're going to compromise yourself. Okay, and so this new era of sovereignty is really on the way, but it starts slowly. Again, that whole ocean doesn't drop in all at once. It's going to drip in little by little. So that's exciting. It's a new era for sure. We'll see how it plays out in different ways. What else is going on this week is Venus tomorrow it's still retrograde, and it's in late Pisces, and it's going to conjunct the North Node in late Pisces. It's already made this conjunction one pass, and it'll make another one. Okay, so this is a long-term period. Venus, North Node in Pisces, it's really about aligning our hearts with our highest intentions. This Pisces is that kind of soul intention. Forget the ego. What did we come here for? Why did we confiscate this body for a temporary period of time to have an experience? What are those true intentions? And so Venus is it's like a heart level energy. We're aligning our hearts with that. Okay, so it's been a process over the last several weeks to a couple months, and it's going to continue for another month or two as Venus comes back to that. but that is coming up again for the second time of 3 here this week. Later in the week, Mars will be forming it's in Cancer still. It's going to be forming a sextile to Uranus and Taurus and a trine to Saturn in Pisces. And that Saturn in Pisces sextile to Uranus and Taurus is just beginning. That'll be with us until January of 2026. I mentioned that last week. So Mars is kind of introducing us to that. And this is a takeoff from the solar eclipse we just had a couple days ago. And that, because Mars is the ruler of Aries, so Mars is the ruler of that eclipse. And so now it's taking that energy of the eclipse, that sense of us, dropping into our sovereignty. And now it's like, okay, where are we going with this? And Saturn in Pisces to Uranus in Taurus is being stimulated because this has to do with long-term gradual change. Okay, so the changes that happen between now and January of next year, they're permanent and they're gradual. They don't come on strong. Similar to Neptune in Aries not dropping all of the ocean into us at once, it's drip by drip. So there's a sense of intentionality with this energy. So we're changing things permanently, but we're doing it in a way that's very practical, gradual, and within our control, essentially. Okay, so Mars is stimulating that this week. And Mars in Cancer, it's basically we're taking action intuitively, okay? And so we're intuitively driven to support these long-term changes, is what's saying. So we're getting on board with those long-term changes this week. As we get into the weekend, next weekend, which is the first weekend in April already, we're going to have the Sun sextile Jupiter, so Sun in Aries sextile Jupiter in Gemini, and we'll also have a trine between Venus in Pisces and Mars in Cancer. Okay, and that's an interesting one. But first, with the sextile between the Sun in Aries, Jupiter in Gemini, this has to do with, now that we've come into this sense of like individuality and sovereignty associated with the eclipse, now we're looking to Jupiter like to expand on, okay, so what are my opinions? Wow, what are my options to think about certain things? It's a very freeing experience. It's an opportunity to say like, well, if I'm on an island, what would I do if I was just by myself? How would I interpret things? What would my philosophy be? How would I perceive things, right? So there is this opportunity for freedom. Again, that idea of to be free, we must disagree, right? And then with that Venus-Mars trine in water signs, it's interesting because that trine will actually happen again when they're both in fire signs, because Venus is still retrograde in Pisces. It will start going direct, and when it enters Aries, it's actually going to form another trine to Mars when Mars is in Leo. Remember, Mars started its retrograde back in December from Leo, went back into Cancer. It's still in Cancer. So they're both in water signs now. They're both about to advance into fire signs. Okay, and that will be in late May. They will make another trine. So there's a trine next weekend, the first weekend in April, and then just before Memorial Day here in the U.S., like May 20 to 25th, something like that. That is when Venus and Mars will form their trine in fire signs. So we have to go back to their conjunction, which was in February of 2024. So just over a year ago, and that was in Aquarius. And so there's some sense last spring, about a year ago, where there was either a project or a relationship or something that was unusual. It required an unusual expression, and yet it kind of planted itself at that point. And it's evolved over the last year, and now we're getting into this trine energy. So now there's a sense of flowing with it. It's just kind of coming together. This, or I should say next weekend in the water signs, there's an intuitive drift toward whatever was created there in late winter, early spring of 2024. When we get to late May, there's a sense of direct action toward that project, toward that relationship, or toward those ideas that were seemingly unusual, that were hard to fit at that time in 2024. So that'll be interesting to see how that evolves, again, between early April and late May with that trine there. So I'll leave it there. I don't want to keep you all morning here, but it's exciting energy. I think that Neptune into Aries, it's probably the most significant thing that's happening this week. Not that the eclipse wasn't significant, right? But we're exiting the eclipse season. It won't be completely over until 2 weeks from now on April 12th. There is a full moon in Libra, and on that 40 minutes after that full moon in Libra, the ruler of Libra, Venus, finally moves direct in Pisces. To me, that closes the chapter on this eclipse season and this retrograde season, because now Venus will be direct. Mercury will have gone direct a week earlier, and so the transitions that have happened here the last couple of months are starting to complete, and it makes sense with that Venus-Mars trine in Cancer. We're kind of sensing our way because Venus is still in retrograde next weekend, but when they're both in fire signs and they make that trine in late May, it's go time, essentially. It's take action time on those creative projects, relationships, whatever it is. So enjoy your week. Please check in if you have any questions. If you want to look at your chart in terms of these energies, I am available. Other than that, enjoy your Sunday, enjoy your week, and we'll see you next time.